We good? Is Molly here? Doesn't look like it. Well, neither is. Okay. I guess everyone's here but Molly. Okay, I would like to call to order the Monday, April 5th meeting of the City of Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore,
Here.
Alder Goforth,
Present.
Alder Wood,
Here.
Alder Coor,
Here.
Alder Thomas,
Here.
Alder Groupie,
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 15th meeting?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Are there any corrections or additions?
I have a correction on page 9 under the council reports. It says that in the transit RFP that we will explicitly request that the company with whom we partner will hire people of color. It's actually to include training about issues related to diversity, such as navigating, protests in downtown Madison, or making sure that drivers and other employees at the company are, familiar with diversity, equity, and other initiatives related to the city and the city of Madison.
Okay. Anyone else? Alder Goforth?
Yeah, on page 9, second paragraph, it says that Landmarks is we talked to Historical Society about an architectural survey. That should be an archaeological survey, please.
Anything else? Okay, if all in favor of approving the minutes as amended, say aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. I have 2 proclamations tonight, which I will read. The first proclamation recognizing April 30th, 2021 is Arbor Day in the city of Monona. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture the special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife, and whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products, and whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal, and whereas the city of Monona has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices, now therefore I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor of the City of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, do hereby proclaim Friday, April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the city of Monona and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodland. Further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. Signed in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, this 5th day of April, 2021, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. Second proclamation is in regards to International Migratory Bird Day. Whereas migratory birds are some of the most beautiful and easily observed wildlife in our communities, and whereas many citizens recognize and welcome migratory songbirds as symbolic harbingers of spring, and whereas these migrant species also play an important economic role in our community, controlling insect pests and generating millions in recreational dollars statewide, and whereas migratory birds and their habitats are declining throughout the Americas, facing a growing number of threats on their migration routes and in both their summer and winter homes, and whereas since 1993, International Migratory Bird Day, IMBD, has become a primary vehicle for focusing public attention on the nearly 350 species that travel between nesting habitats in our communities and throughout North America and their wintering grounds in South and Central America, Mexico, the Caribbean, and the Southern U.S., and whereas hundreds of thousands of people will observe IMBD, gathering in town squares, community centers, schools, parks, and nature centers to learn about birds, take action to conserve them, and simply to have fun. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor, do hereby proclaim Saturday, May 8th, 2021 as International Migratory Bird Day in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin. And I urge all citizens to celebrate this observance and to support efforts to protect and conserve migratory birds and their habitats in our community and the world at large. Signed in the city of Monona, Dane County, Wisconsin, this 5th day of April, 2021, Mary Kay O'Connor, Mayor. Thank you. We have 3 appearances tonight. I will just call them in the order that we received the request. We'd like to keep these to about 3 minutes, and just be aware that we will not be having a dialogue with you. The main purpose of the appearance is just to state your thoughts and opinions. So the first one is Kathy Carew. I think you're on mute, Kathy.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, now you're good.
Okay, sorry about that. I tried to check everything out. My name is Kathy Carew. I live at 4905 Rothman Place. It's right on the northeast corner of Winnequa Park. I'm timing this, so I have something to read, and I don't know if it's very timely or not, but here it is. My parents immigrated from a small mountain village in Austria. After living in Chicago for 4 years, they discovered Monona, fell in love with it, and moved here. They raised 7 kids in the same house that my husband and I live in now. It's been in our family for 66 years. In 1954, when they bought it, there was no park, just a marsh and woods. Soon the marsh was graded into a park, and the school, community center, and library were to follow. The park is an amazing green space for so many sports activities, and the shelter fantastic for gatherings. All this makes for a vibrant community. Last summer, my husband and I biked around the lake 66 times. When we don't bike, we walk. When the pool is open, we swim. We have a small boat, so we use a boat landing, which are fantastic. In winter, we snowshoe on the frozen lake shore. My husband commuted by bike to the university where he worked. Tim, my husband, and I were both on the dive team in our youth, and in 2005, he was the dive director for All City. Tim also coached youth in the high school soccer for 8 years. I worked for the school district for 21 years. I created an after-school free sewing club for 5th graders at Winnequa. I tell you all this because we are part of the fabric of Monona. We have a lot of friends and know many people with shared experiences. Now I want to bring up some issues, and this is not my list alone. We have a constant noise from the skate park and pickleball, and we love it. Truth is, in 2004, our 12-year-old son was a skateboarder, and when we heard the city was considering putting in a skate park, we jumped in and spent 5 years raising funds. With the help of especially Doug Wood, it happened, and it is incredibly popular. When it needed some attention last summer, because it is 12 years old, I was unsuccessful to make it happen. But with the help of Christy Goforth, it got done. Trash complaints? Let's put back that second trash can, which helped in the past. And as far as pickleball, well, we bought paddles and now we're learning how to play. Years ago, when I found out the mistake that happened at the newly built shelter house at the Dream Park, I literally cried. The old warming house was a hub of activity in the winter. Ice skating was all it, and also free. Not sure if our community really needed an ice rink with its own Zamboni when our community is over $50 million in debt. The 4 poles and nets by the pool were a big expense and did not solve the problem. And did we really need 2 new 4-door Silverado pickup trucks when we really need an ambulance? To us older Mononanites, the 4 Lakes Yacht Club is an institution, and how they were treated and what was at the cost to us was just more than terrible. Stonebridge is a ravine before it's a park. When a space involves water and you change it too much, Mother Nature has a way of reminding us that it is still hers. And you can grade it and put an ADA walkway, but the elevation between the road and the lake doesn't change. You'll get down there, but it won't be easy coming back. San Damiano's so excited that we own it, but it's really scary how it will evolve. That we don't require multiple bids under the amount of $25,000 is irresponsible. Mistakes shouldn't happen in a relatively small community. We need to be more careful. We are all in this together, but you hold the purse strings and make the decisions. I appreciate your time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Next is Becky Alexander. Becky?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. My name is Becky Alexander. I live at 4807 Wallace Avenue. And I got an unsolicited phone call from the mayor, which was quite nice last week. She asked me about my concerns or any questions, and I asked her about term limits. She said that there are currently no term limits, and that is something that is concerning me.
We're talking about city committees. That's correct, right? Or are you talking about council and mayor as well?
I believe I'm talking about everything, but I'm really going to be talking about the committees and the boards.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify, sorry.
Okay, yep. According to our website, there is a total of 18 different committees, boards, and commissions. And as far as I know, there's no term limits for any of them. Under the current structure, these positions are essentially like a lifetime appointment because people kind of make the decision if they're going to leave instead of us maybe looking at having term limits. Monona is vibrant and evolving, and our committees should reflect that. To that end, some of the things that I think that we should think about are imposing a staggered 3-year term limit on all committees. Members in good standing are free to reapply when their time is up. Provide advance notice to all city residents of upcoming openings through the newsletter, city hall postings, WVMO, newspaper. I know that some of that did happen this year. Craft and post clear, transparent policies on the selection criteria and eligibility. Knowing how they are selected and why would probably be very helpful for people who are interested in them. Timely acknowledgement and receipt and review of all respondents and applicants. Posting of names and appointments of successful candidates, and I believe that that's been done as of the last go round with the committees. As I also understood in my conversation with the mayor, there are many applicants for vacant positions, which I think is great. And Monona should be championing modernization and diversity, and hopefully we can get some good people on our committees, and not that we don't have good people on our committees, but continue to have good support on our committees. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one thing I would clarify, I think I told you we have many applicants for some committees. Other committees, we last time don't have any applicants at all. So, okay. I think we have one more appearance, and that's Jason Chung. Jason,
Hi.
if you want to go ahead.
Jason Chung, 5404 McKenna Road. And I'm here tonight to speak for information purposes on race and equity actions that the city is undertaking. And a little after 5 o'clock, I sent out a lengthy memo to council members. I apologize for the lateness of that, but I hope you had a chance to read it. I am not going to attempt to speed read through that. I'll just make a few comments to punctuate what I wrote. Last fall, when the Nehemiah Center sponsored a listening session on race and equity issues in Monona, I made some remarks which included my saying at the end that as an Asian American, I felt that how our city dealt with its race relations concerning its Black residents made a difference to me personally as an Asian American. Someone who spoke shortly after me, a white person, started off their comments by saying, well, Jason said this matters to him as an Asian American. I think it matters to all of us. I thought about that as he was speaking. It was just interesting to me. Why did this white person not just say what they had to say, but diminish what I said as an Asian American as their jumping off point? It was not a big deal, no harm, no foul. The reason I bring this up is because we have an engagement with the Nehemiah Center to take the pulse of race relations in our city. And I think in the scope of services in their contract, it's one thing that they say, it's probably boilerplate, but they want to get at the hidden barriers that reduce our inclusivity level. These are the kinds of hidden barriers I'm talking about. There is culture in everything we do. There is culture in city committees, city processes, public listening sessions that we sponsor. Nothing is culturally neutral or objective. And it's little things like this. They are little, but it's little things like this that make the difference between whether our residents relate to our government or not. It signals who owns this space, this public space, and who doesn't own it. So in my letter, in my memo, I really emphasize the importance of the Nehemiah Center's work, because I think that's what's different that we are undertaking. It's not setting up the committees. It's not coming up with a list of ideas. And I don't mean to diminish that. I'm about to finish up here. I know my time is coming up. But I've been through those processes before. And for the most part, good things are done, but they don't last because there is such disengagement in the beginning. What we are doing different is this project with the Nehemiah Center. And so I really would like to see that be the foundation for everything that goes forward. I think that's where our best chance lies. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. I guess if there are no other appearances, Brian, have you received anything else? I will close the appearance section of the meeting. We have no public hearing. We have no consent agenda. Moving on to council action items. G1A under unfinished business, consideration of resolution 21-3-2473, award of contract for Woodland Park parking lot and trail improvements put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. Is there a motion to approve this?
I'll move approval.
Second.
Jake?
Good evening, Mayor. Thank you. The only thing I have from last meeting with the introduction of this project is I had discussions with the contractor, and they would be starting sometime in April. Probably be a 2 to 3 month project based on weather.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Alder Kuhr.
I just had a thought, and if Dan's on the line, when they start the water tower, is this going to impact what they're doing with the construction at Woodland?
No, this should not have any impact. The paint crews will utilize the front driveway off Monona Drive and pretty much keep their operations isolated to the top of the hill right there by the White Tower.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, if there are no further questions, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Groupie,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Goforth,
Aye.
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Kuhr,
Aye.
Alder Thomas.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item B, consideration of resolution 21-3-2475, approval to construct a mountain bike trail in Maywood Park, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. And I do have, we did receive one email in support of this from Nicholas Templeton.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Jake, were you or Missy going to?
I'll turn it over to Missy on this.
Okay.
Thanks, Jake. Mayor, we do not have any updates or changes after the last meeting.
Okay, do any of the council have any questions? Hearing none, then all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations, boys. Did a great job. Next, item C, consideration of ordinance 3-21-738, requiring a three-way stop controlled intersection at Nichols Road and Winnequa Road, put forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
Move approval.
I'll second.
Okay, and we did receive, I know there were several emails in your packet regarding from people in favor of it, and we received 2 this morning against it from Kate Lautenbach and Jeff Schmidt, both of 5005 Winnequa Road. And I think you probably all saw those. They arrived this morning. So, okay, Dan, you going to address this?
Yep, thank you, Mayor. Coming out of the first reading, Alder Wood had also asked for relevant state statutes pertaining to this regarding bicycles. So included in the packet for the second reading, I have some language from Wisconsin State Statutes 346.02 and 340.01. Basically, a summary stating that bicycles need to follow the rules of the road, which include stop signs, and State Statutes 340 covers the definition of a vehicle. So this as it applies to bicycles. Also, Alder Wood requested some traffic data for Nichols Road as you go westbound to the Winnequa Road intersection. That information was also included in your packet. Quick summary on that data. On average, about 611 vehicles use this stretch of roadway each day that is between Healy Lane and Winnequa Road. The 85th percentile speed in this section alone is 30 miles an hour. And as you can see from the data, the speeds are reaching up to about 44 miles an hour at times throughout the day as well. So I think that was all the added information that was requested for the second reading.
Thank you, Dan. Does anyone have any questions? Alder Moore.
Yeah, Dan, I'm wondering if you might, the individuals that expressed concern about the three-way stop suggested that speed humps or something like that might be an alternative, and I'm assuming that that was something that Public Works probably discussed, or at least would have a view from a safety standpoint or effectiveness standpoint. The stop signs versus additional safety humps, and not only Public Works, but for that matter, if our police department or fire department would have something on as that as an alternative, I would appreciate that being discussed here.
To my knowledge, the only party that talked about speed humps was, I believe, an email that came in today that was forwarded to you all. There was some discussion at the Public Works Committee. I know Alder Kaur and Alder Thomas did talk about wanting to discuss the difference between speed humps and stop sign application at future meetings. They want to develop some criteria. I know in the past, prior to my arrival, the city had set some criteria. We plan on bringing that to a future meeting for discussion at Public Works. But in this particular case, I'm not aware of any speed hump discussion in place of the three-way stop signs. But other people could have received that information.
Alder Kaur.
Yeah, at the meeting, we did not discuss the alternative of a speed hump simply because this isn't an issue that we were addressing in terms of speed. It was an issue in regards to pedestrians and sight lines.
Right.
And so that's why we chose a stop sign as opposed to speed humps.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the clarification.
Alder Groupie.
I know to some degree we've already discussed bicycle traffic, but one of the concerns raised by a constituent was, is all vehicle traffic affected by the stop? And it would be. It applies to all vehicles. Something that I want to also bring up is, I know that we mentioned some of the resident opposition to this, but we are constantly collecting data as a city and as a Public Works department on different intersections in town, collector streets. We're currently, reevaluating the bike, the lake loop around the city and the city of Monona in connection to the greater bike loop. And so I think this is something that we will continue to evaluate. And, I think it is, I've agreed with the constituents who have said, they're nervous about the increased number of cyclists, pedestrians, strollers, families in the area, just because there are a lot of, the pool, the library, a lot of city center activities to do there. But this is something that we can continue to monitor and collect data on. If it turns out that it's not effective, we can always, revisit in the future. But I think that's just something important to keep in mind, is that we're always tracking these sorts of things at different highly trafficked intersections in the city.
Thank you.
Alder Thomas.
Yeah, couple of things. Stop signs are not meant to slow down speeding by law, but I mean by federal, not law, but recommendation. And so that the purpose of speed humps is to slow down speeding, and we need to take a look at that seriously, because the other thing is that cars don't always stop for stop signs, but it's hard not to slow down for speed humps. And so if you think that you have a dangerous situation, speed humps, I think, are more effective in slowing down traffic. Stop signs slow down some of the traffic, those that stop. But there are those that don't always stop. And we may need to, and the chief is, hope the chief is listening, and the acting chief and the mayor, because I think that the Public Safety Committee we need to take a look at our enforcement in this city.
Yeah.
We need to see if we can step that up a bit, which is a challenge, because I know our officers are busy responding to other things and don't always have time to do the speed enforcement, but somehow we have to figure out how we can find a way to do that.
I just checked with Chief Duman today, actually, because as you know, there was a second speed trailer, money for a second speed trailer put in the capital budget for this year. I just checked with Sarah to see if that had been ordered yet, and apparently it hasn't. So she's going to be taking care of that, because I think that is effective also. And I think having 2 of those will help in some spots anyway. Anybody else have any questions? Alder, go forth.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just curious, because we know it's for safety related concerns and not for controlling speed. I was just curious if other safety considerations were considered, like say a painted crosswalk there with the really skinny orange cylinder with the little sign that says autos must stop for people in the crosswalk. Was that an option that was considered instead of the stop sign?
No.
No, I went down today and I I knocked all the doors around that intersection just to talk with them, and because the people that live there are the experts. They know all of the traffic patterns, not so much myself. And so it was really interesting talking with folks. There were 2 residents not home, but there were two homes that felt very strongly opposed to it that were right at the intersection. One on Nichols, she said she felt that the speed on Nichols was more of the problem because it's a very straight shot, and it's a wider street. They talked about there not being any accidents there in 7.5 years. Apparently the last accident was due to a heroin overdose. I guess, and I know we're not supposed to get public input for stop signs, but I like to be informed, and I rely on public input to make my decisions. And I think several people said it didn't seem necessary. They felt Nichols was the problem for speeding. They asked if we could take other safety precautions like the painted crosswalk. And so the other question I have is, like, have we considered instead maybe the intersection at Baskerville, Winnequa Trail and Winnequa Road, which is a really dangerous intersection? I know it's maybe not as ped heavy, but it's really heavy for bike traffic. Just wondering if that one might be a consideration instead.
I think part of the issue with this one is that there's a lot of people crossing from the neighborhood back there going to the park, the pool, and the library.
Which is why I think that's why they thought the painted crosswalk could be really
and also
effective.
If you'll read the packet, several of the people who live right around there did send us emails in support of it. So I'm not sure. I know you talked to some too, but several of the emails we received are from people right around there. Alder Cooper.
If Alder Goforth has another intersection she'd like to discuss, it can come to a Public Works meeting and we will bring it up at the meeting. At this point, the Public Works committee has discussed this, and the concern was sightlines as opposed to speed in this area combined with the amount of pedestrians. And so this wasn't just because there's a lot of head traffic, although that was one of the issues, but the sightline on the curve is also a concern. I'd also like to say that it's not that we don't take public input on stop signs. You are always welcome to come to any one of our public safety meetings. We've had this at 2 council meetings. You're always welcome to give comments at any of those meetings or by email. So the idea that we're not taking public input on stop signs is not true.
Dan?
Yeah, I would like to clear that up a little bit. Alder Goforth and I were communicating a little bit regarding this topic. I just want to make it clear that usually when it comes to street design, speed humps, traffic calming, things like that, the public, we have public information meetings, we gather public input on the designs and stuff, but typically when it comes to regulatory signs, we usually don't leave that up to the public to decide. I just want to make sure that's conveyed properly here. State statutes provides that responsibility to the Public Works Committee. And by city ordinance, it lies with the Public Works Committee as a recommendation to City Council. Public input is always appreciated. But when it comes to regulatory signs, specifically stop signs, this is one where you really don't leave it up to residents to decide. So that lies with City Council. I just wanted to add that.
Anyone else? Alder Thomas and then Alder Goforth.
Yeah, a couple of things. There are criteria by which we determine when to put stop signs in. And I think it's good to talk to the people. And the one nice thing about stop signs is they are not cast in concrete, as it were. And if it doesn't work, and if when we go through the criteria and say that speed humps there are more appropriate, we can do that. You can't do that so much with speed humps, but you certainly, there used to be a stop sign right where between our house and Bob Miller's house, which is no longer there because, and I don't know why it's not there, but it was determined that it wasn't effective or wasn't appropriate. So I think that there have been some problems down there and it fits the criteria. And we can try it, and if there is a better solution or a different solution, we can always reconsider. Not that we should be putting in signs and taking them out willy-nilly, but it is an option.
Alder Goforth.
I was wondering if we could, I don't know if this is a really pressing issue, but if we could delay an action on this, just to have an opportunity to talk with some of those folks down there and give them one more opportunity for input. Most of them didn't know that it was coming to us tonight, and they hadn't been contacted. They didn't feel that they had a chance to chime in on this. So I don't know if this is urgent or if we could take a little more time just to delay this and talk with them.
Dan, do we typically notify people when we're putting in a stop sign?
Not for stop signs. Usually if we sign areas no parking, we will provide letters and get feedback and comment, but typically not for stop signs.
Alder Coor.
Alder Goforth, you can make a motion to table if you choose.
Okay. I'll wait till discussion.
Are you moving to table or?
Well, I would like to move to table. Yes, I will move to table. How about we move to table until the next council meeting?
Is there a second for that? Okay, apparently there's no. Alder Thomas?
Yeah, just a comment about the streets and the street safety. The streets there are traveled by people from all over the city, and the safety of those streets are of concern for everybody, not just, and I agree that the neighbors tend to see more than other people, Alder Goforth. They won't disagree with that at all. But what I will tell you is that, and I live on Winnequa Road, what are the interests of the people who live here versus all of the other people in the city who travel that road may be very different. And it is, I think it's, while it's good to get input from the people who live there for us to consider, there are hundreds of other people who travel that road or who walk the road or who may bike the road or whose kids may walk that road to go to school, who may have a very different view of it. So we would have to expand it to do a whole nother thing. And we have criteria on which the federal government gives us guidelines on what those are, and we do it. And I hate to get in the business. Winnequa Road is, everything has a purpose in life, even if it's to serve as a bad example. And Winnequa Road is one of those things that is a bad example that was designed by the people. And somehow you need the expertise and the rules to make these decisions, and not a few people who live there, because they have a perspective. And I think it's great that you went there. I'm not being critical of that, but those streets are not paid for. We don't assess people for the streets in front of them. The entire city pays for those streets. They come out of our capital budget, and we all drive, walk, bike, skate those streets, and we all have an interest beyond the people who live right at that intersection.
Thank you. Get back to the second question. Is there a second? Hearing none, then the motion fails for lack of a second. Alder Groupie, did you have something?
I think Alder Moore had her hand up before I did, so I can take a back seat to her comment.
Alder Moore?
Yeah, I guess I too appreciate Alder Goforth's interest in what the immediate vicinity, but would certainly echo what Alder Thomas said. And on top of that, I would just say that, you know, our go back to what Director Stefani said, which is, you know, we have a Public Works Committee with considerable expertise on it, in addition to the laws and the analysis that they do on every decision that they make. And I think it's, it's certainly appropriate for us to ask clarifications around a decision. But in this case, it is something that's been a concern that's been raised for a long time. The committee's obviously given it its due and is following, again, the data that we have on what happens in that road and the reality of it being a sightline issue, and not just a speeding issue. And so I would urge us to support the decision of the committee and their expertise in making it.
Alder Groupie.
I think some really important points have been brought up by everybody tonight. Not just, the immediate vicinity usage of the streets, the community-wide usage, the importance of using professional and, experienced input on decisions such as these. But I also think, I think it's very thoughtful that Alder Goforth went to try to talk to constituents. I think that would be a great thing for us all to be involved in. So that's something that, I've said to Alder Goforth before. If you're going to do that, let's talk about it as a group. It would be great to have this information or have these conversations prior to, having them come to the table at the evening of a meeting. But one thing that I do think that, your reaching out has brought up, Alder Goforth, are things like notification if a new stop sign is going in. That could be a useful thing to notify residents about. Now that we're really trying to be more, transparent about communication in our newsletter, and, we've talked about people not always being able to attend public meetings or contribute in that way. I think that there are opportunities here that this question has raised. So I appreciate the thoughtful discussion. I am in support of this motion, and I think that we should vote in favor of it this evening. But I do think, exploring, as Public Works is committed to doing, speed humps and other traffic, moderation and sightline and, things like that related to different types of measures that are most effective for certain types of intersections and streets are important things to keep on the table, and they will be noted in tonight's meeting minutes so that we can reference them in the future and be held accountable to them. So.
Alder Goforth.
Yeah, I do not refute any of your statements. All of what Alder Thomas said is absolutely accurate and factual, and I respect all of that information. The concerns that the residents down there have is with their peace of mind. So, you know, when you live at a stop sign, which I do, you do get used to the constant acceleration and deceleration, especially of loud vehicles. And so they have concerns in that regard. So their concerns are elevated beyond all of the users that go through that intersection every single day, basically because of the noise. So I would say that, you know, and I feel, I just feel like if it's not a rush, we could give them a little more time to chime in and have a conversation with us. But it maybe, is this a rush? I guess that's what I'm asking. Is this a rush? Do we have to do it tonight?
Okay, does anyone else have any comments? Okay, then we'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Present.
Okay, motion passes. Next item, discussion and possible action on resolution 21-3-2470, establishing an ad hoc work group on diversity and equity issues put forth by Alders Moore and Wood. And before we start with this, we'll have to, is there a motion to remove this from the table? Since we tabled it last time.
A move to remove it from the table.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, is there a motion to approve this?
I had submitted a substitute amendment or resolution. So I would move adoption of that substitute.
Second.
Okay, any discussion about Doug's, I think you all received Doug's substitute amendment?
Yes.
And Harry Hawkins is here from Nehemiah. I think some people expressed an interest and had some questions for him about what their role would be. So I guess now would be the time if you, Alder Wood.
Yeah, I think the changes that I proposed in the substitute were pretty straightforward and self-explanatory. But I guess I would like to hear from Harry Hawkins and everybody else what they think about the timing of this, and some of the comments that Jason Chung had brought up, whether this is the right time to go forward with, even though this work group, part of their job is to decide if we need a permanent committee and what the charge of that committee would be. But I guess I'm still, some of the comments have heard have given me a little pause about whether this is the right thing to do right now.
Yes, well, thank you all for inviting me here tonight. So one of the things that I think can be very impactful is really, I'll answer, I think there are two questions that I'll respond to. One was our role as we see it. And really we're hoping to bring really kind of a consultant, really a guiding hand to getting this group set up. So that's really how we expect to operate with that group. Really is not to dictate what needs to happen, but really help set up the foundation and get the processes in place so that the Monona residents can kind of carry out this work. We feel like it won't be something that we would need to be involved with indefinitely, just really until it got going and the group felt like it could operate on its own. So we don't see that being more a few months, 3, 6, 12, somewhere in that range, right? So, and then the second part is, as far as timing, I think the people that really want to do things often have a hard time understanding and appreciating how government must operate, because a lot of times governments, even city governments, there's just a lot of process that you have to go through to make decisions, right? So you can't say, hey, here's this problem, and then we're just going to fix it in one meeting. There's a process, and some people, even though they're more than welcome to come to the meetings and participate, some people just don't. And so I think for me, the issue of timing really comes down to scope. Because I think if there's an issue with what are we doing or how are we doing it, I think you can always do something to get started with a smaller scope is always better than to wait to do something bigger. And so for me, I think the idea that the work group would meet and kind of determine the scope and the work should be some of the first business that they engage in. Because having a group that waits too long can also be problematic if you get started too soon and things aren't exactly clear. But we feel like I guess the benefit is we already know going into a group, anytime you're going to start a group about equity and diversity, we already know going in, it's not going to be clear. So the work, what needs to be the focus, what's the priority, how soon can these things happen? There's very little clarity in this work when you first get started. So because we know that, we design our process to address those very issues. And I think if nothing else, just getting the representation of the voices that you want to have speak into these processes gathered and talking, and also to just get some ideas about focus. If nothing else came from the work group other than you were able to accomplish those two things, I think that's a worthy enough cause to have the group and get started, because you can always change your course as you go, but it's hard to rebuild trust if this moment where the city is saying, hey, we're going to do things, if people might misinterpret your caution as a dismissal. And so I think the risk of not doing something is much greater than doing something and having to change the scope as you go.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, I just thought it might be helpful, especially for, I know there's a number of you that love the details. So I thought it might be helpful to just kind of rewind a little bit to just remind people where this came from. It's just to say that, this is something that really started on the 16th of June. I went back and read all the emails. So, not too long after the June 2nd incident that we had here in Monona. Josh Peterson reached out and spoke to the importance of truth telling to all of us. He wrote an email to all of us and spoke to the importance of truth telling and the idea of having a new permanent commission. And he defined it as fostering a community forum to identify and fastidiously address the root causes of suffering due to all forms of social inequity. And he envisioned a permanent Truth and Reconciliation Commission that would meet regularly and then provide quarterly reports to the City Council, not only about the topics discussed, but personal accounts of what they were hearing and proposals for structural change. And so as one would imagine in a title, like a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, it really was about truth telling, but also addressing the social inequities that exist in everything that we do. Kevin and Ben, Kevin Pellerin and Ben Sanders were added to that list to participate in that very shortly thereafter. And then Jason was added on July 12th. So not that much longer after that, that we all started meeting. And I should add that at the time, it was also requested by Jason that that commission be chaired by the mayor, co-chaired by the mayor and the president of the council. those two be in part to demonstrate that the city was serious and was giving this issue sufficient gravitas. Shortly after that, on the 23rd of June, Jason asked me if I would socialize it. The idea of such a commission, which I did on Nextdoor and on Facebook, and also in a letter to the editor for the Herald. And I drafted a charter, which was shared with everyone that was involved. And by the way, there wasn't anybody else involved, because if anybody else was involved from the council, we would have been breaking a quorum. So, you know, with Doug and Mary and myself already in the room, we couldn't have anybody else in the room, so to speak. And so I drafted the charter, and we went back and forth and did a lot of edits on a charter around this commission. And then on September 23rd, we actually outlined something that we thought could be taken to AmFam, because one of Jason, or one of Josh's offers from the get-go was that AmFam would be interested in supporting Monona in this work, if we could figure out how that support could be helpful. And one of the things that we were struggling with was, given the plate full that staff has, you know, who would staff it and how much time would it take, and recognizing that we would be thinking about processes and how it would work and all that kinds of stuff. But the general gist, the goals as drafted, were that this committee would really kind of shifted from truth telling, which is which is not to say that it wouldn't be part of it, but that it was really to review and support and make recommendations to city departments in a systematic way, because it is a systematic issue, and really look more internally. And you know, there's just a few data points I can share with you. I mean, I recently was speaking in the police department, and they've had some additional training, of course, since that incident, but you know, it was raised that they're having a hard time finding some other training that would be really valuable. Why? Because it's under other duties as assigned. You know, there's no champion. I mean, I'm a consultant by training, and you know, one of the things that I know is that change doesn't happen without the right champions, without the right people in the room. And so, you know, that was one data point. Another one just came up when a resident spoke to us recently and also wrote to the Herald about realtor practices in Monona, where realtors are requesting pictures from potential buyers in this hot market. And, you know, we ended up, Alder Kerr and I ended up communicating with them, and I'm sure some of the rest of you did too. We found out that there's a state law that prevents us from banning the practice, even though it could be very discriminatory. So then the question becomes, okay, if we can't ban the practice or we can't be involved in that, what else might we do in the community to impact that? Is it educating realtors? Is it educating potential buyers? Is it what, you know? So there's all kinds of things that come up when our stuff is getting in the way and that we can't necessarily see. You know, our white privilege is getting in the way, and the systemic way in which we operate. And so the idea behind this commission, you know, was this originally, this permanent commission was to be there, as I said, as a support, but not get in the way, in much the same way that the Sustainability Committee operates now in terms of providing resources and materials and support to other city committees. And we backed up, in a sense, to this because, you know, we wanted to bring more people in shaping this, you know, if there is to be a permanent commission, and because we wanted to make sure that we weren't conflicting with the work of Nehemiah, and instead was supporting it. And my understanding is that the work that Nehemiah is doing with the community and the community group that it hopes to form or will form is that that is much more about truth telling, and they don't want government involved in it. They want people to be able to feel safe, communicating and learning and connecting with each other in a way that government isn't involved. And it's not about policy, and it's not about procedures and processes to do the right thing by this community and make ourselves more socially responsible and equitable. So I just thought I'd point out that this has been a long process. We did take a break because of the budget, and because of course the mayor was out for a stretch as well, and then we got back to it in January, and that's where we got to where we got. So just thought it would help to give a little bit of background there.
Alder Groupie, or I'm sorry, you finished?
No, yeah, I am. Thank you.
Alder Groupie.
I will be brief because I think I appreciate the background from Nancy, but I think it also expresses something that has been raised tonight, which is that our white voices are guiding this conversation. I want to amplify Jason's voice from him having said earlier that he was rebuffed. It sounded like somebody from council during our community listening session who tried to make it sort of all-inclusive versus acknowledging his thoughts as an Asian American during that conversation.
I don't think he said it was anyone from council. I think
maybe I misinterpreted the comment. Either way, I think those biases and those little comments that we make about being in charge and trying to do something good are sometimes counterintuitive to anti-racism. I appreciate what Harry has said tonight. I think it's very valuable to get started on this with Nehemiah's blessing, but I think we do need to be thoughtful about calling ourselves champions or, putting this on the table as white leaders in the city that is asking for a change. I also think, if we're talking truth telling, that we also need to stop, I know we call it the June 2nd incident, but we've also had requests from constituents saying, let's call it the incident in which Keontae Furge was handcuffed by our police department. I mean, I think we need to get real here and just try to do our best to mute our own voices, do some more, retooling of ourselves internally, and really work harder on amplifying the voices of other people in the community. I think this committee is a good step in moving in that direction. I think insisting on making it diverse and inclusive and representative of more of our community members is really important. And again, I think we've cleared the air here about overlap with Nehemiah's efforts. As I said, again, I'm talking here, but that has been a gift that I've learned from my work with Nehemiah, and I'm not there yet. It's a journey forever, every day, but, learning to amplify the voices of other people that are not us. And I worry about talking about systemic issues because it also removes some of our personal responsibility as individuals in the government. So all of that is to say is I'm supportive of this. I appreciate Alder Wood's recommendations for, the amendments. I think it's really important to have the conversation about the timing of this. But I also, I just want to make sure we don't get too derailed about talking about ourselves and, lose focus on this opportunity and the intent of it, in our conversations. Sorry, I kind of get off track, but, I want to make sure that we're acknowledging everybody's voice here, and that's it.
Alder Moore and then Alder Goforth, just because I think Alder Moore might want to address what Alder Groupie said.
Yeah, I want to make clear that this wasn't about my voice. My whole point was to say that the whole reason why we stopped what we were doing in the small group and decided to go to the ad hoc group was precisely to widen and diversify the circle and make sure, as was written, that it is a diverse and wider group, and that it's not a bunch of, we had a diverse group. It was a small group, but a diverse group nonetheless. But the whole reason why we decided to go to the ad hoc was so that we could bring a lot more voices, critical voices, into the conversation. And so I wholeheartedly support it for that reason. And I thank Jason and Kevin and Josh and everyone else that's been involved in it from the very beginning.
Alder Goforth.
I know when we passed or approved the Nehemiah contract, I was really excited about their Community Action Council. I was really excited about that piece of work. And I think, to Jason's point is that is the foundation that we need to start with. That is, that is what I am hoping to see, because we've contracted with them to do that. It makes sense to have professionals lead the way, and then we take the next step. I feel like the timing of this is not a good night to be deciding anything personally. It's a very highly politically charged environment. We want the optics of this to be as genuine and great as they can possibly be. I don't feel that that's the case. I have talked with others who are uneasy about this timing. We've waited almost 10 months. What I'm going to ask is that we table this until after the election, after the first organizational meeting, and the new elected officials, whoever they may be, even if they are all the same people, are seated, and then we take this up at that time. So I hope I can get a second on this.
Is there a second? Apparently not.
I will second it.
You will second it?
I will second it.
All right. Well, then we do need a majority of the vote. So there's been a motion made and second. All in favor, say aye.
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 So is that Alder Goforth and Alder Groupie?
I believe Alder Thomas also
Alder
voted aye.
Thomas, your aye as well?
This is a motion to table, right?
Right. And then opposed. All opposed.
Nay.
Yay.
Nay.
So we have a tie. So I will vote with the ayes to table it again. Harry, thank you for coming. We may need you again.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on under,
Sorry, Mayor, could I make a brief comment?
sure.
I think, first of all, I appreciate the conversation again, as always, but I think it's important to acknowledge what Harry said about making sure that we don't delay this so long that people get frustrated and lose trust. I do think that we need to be clear about Alder Goforth's suggestion that having change in leadership, yes or no, but also potential change in committee participation, I think could be a useful, tool to have in our pockets as we move forward with this. Beyond the organizational meeting, I wouldn't want to delay it any further than that. Again, I think Harry has raised an important point on that issue.
Okay, and just keep in mind, this committee only has a 6-month charge. All they're doing is coming up with ideas for a longer term, more permanent course. I guess I would say that may involve a permanent committee. It may involve something else. They may decide to go with the Nehemiah committee and not even do this. I don't know, but just so everyone's aware of that, this is not a long-term permanent committee. So, okay, we are going to move on to new business now. Item 2A, consideration of resolution 21-4-2476, award of contract for 2021 street chip seal project put forth by the Public Works Committee. Dan?
Thank you,
ready to
Mayor.
address this?
Yep. Tonight, this appears on the agenda for the first reading here at City Council. We have this on the agenda for this coming Wednesday's meeting, April 7th at the Public Works Committee, and then back here for the second reading on April 19th. On March 18th, we received bids from 2 bidders, Scott Construction and Farner Asphalt Sealers. Scott Construction provided the low bid in the amount of $134,308.74. This project includes 10 streets that we will be chip sealing. It's just over 56,000 square yards, just over 16,000 linear feet, and over 3 miles of roadway that we'll be doing with this project. We're going to be going with the black or gray granite. It's going to be a loose chip application. And the requirements are that the streets will be swept within 48 hours and will require multiple sweepings to collect all the loose chips. We'll be installing inlet protection on all inlets on all the streets. And also we'll be doing crack sealing and spray patching as needed on all the roads. So that's pretty much a summary of what we're doing with this project. Be more than happy to answer any questions you have.
Anyone have any questions for Dan? And this, as you know, was something as part of the capital budget, so. I guess not, Dan, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next item, consideration of resolution 21-4-2478, purchase approval of 2 police vehicles put forth by interim police chief Duman. Chief Duman, would you like to?
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. What you see before you is the resolution to purchase 2 hybrid police Explorer vehicles. My request is to, in addition to it being a hybrid vehicle, add additional lighting to the vehicle, which is visible from the rear. Given the amount of time that we spend out on the Beltline for crashes, that would help us to be more visible to traffic. So back in October, we put forth the capital budget to purchase 2 new hybrid vehicles. Since that time, we have learned that not all of the equipment will fit from the old squad cars into the new vehicles due to a redesign that Ford did between the 19 and 20 model vehicles. As a result of that, we're having to purchase additional equipment that was listed in there. Cages, prisoner seat, push bumper console, window guards, and easy cargo tray will not fit from the 2019 vehicles into the 2020 vehicles. The total of that, and I did include some invoices here from 2020 pricing, is about $4,400 $4,300 for new equipment. And so what I put together was the spreadsheet, the 2021 police vehicle purchase estimate. That lays out the cost for just a, before I say this, I guess let me go back and say, one of the things that we always did was Chief Ostrenga said we would contact Ewald, who has the state bid for the vehicles, find out what Madison was using as their baseline for their squad ordering. So I did that, but they came back with that Madison had come back to them and asked for this additional lighting in their squads as well. So I put the pricing out for each of the options, one being a basic gas without the lighting, the second being a gas vehicle without or with the lighting, the third, the hybrid vehicle without the lighting, and the fourth, the hybrid vehicle with the lighting. And as you can see, given the additional cost of the equipment, that, unless we choose the gas basic option with no additional lighting, we are going to end up being over budget. I don't know if Alder Thomas has her hand raised.
Alder Thomas, did you want to explain the 4 different prices that you have?
Sure.
Options that
Sure.
you have before we get into questions?
Sure. So our budget was $96,000 with the basic gas vehicle. The quote on that was $36,313. The gas vehicle with lighting, $38,550.50. The hybrid basic vehicle is $39,428.50, and the hybrid with the lighting is $41,665.50. So based on each one of those options, we would, if we went with the hybrid vehicle with lighting, which is what I would like to pursue, we would be about $10,411.50 over budget. Alder Thomas did ask me to put together an estimate of the cost savings between a gas squad and a hybrid. We have not had a hybrid in service much more than about a year, maybe just under a year. So what I did was I based this estimate on a 6-month period of time from July 1st until the end of December. and I averaged our squad miles between our primary patrol vehicles, which came up to an average of about 17,400 miles per year. Based on the hybrid miles per gallon average was 14, and the gas only options was about 8.1. Using that estimate, our annual cost for a hybrid vehicle would be about $2,897, and the annual cost for a non-hybrid vehicle is over $5,000. So per vehicle per year, we would be looking at a cost savings of about $2,110, and that's utilizing a $2.33 per gallon gas price. So as prices go up, that savings would increase as well. If they would go down, obviously the savings would be reduced on that as well too.
How many years will we use that squad?
We generally use them about 5 years each. So, and then we rotate them back out. Well, by that time, I don't know. So one of the squads that we're replacing at the end of December, I don't have the other numbers in front of me right here, was at $105,000 miles. So that one is well over 100,000 miles. So by that time, we end up with other repair costs. And so we try to keep them in a 5-year rotation to get them replaced.
Alder Thomas.
So it is worth buying the hybrid just for gas savings alone. I mean, we will come out higher than that. We're also pushing for the lights, and we would point out to you that the lights, when we sell the vehicle, we strip the lights off. So presumably we should be able to reuse those when we buy a new squad, assuming that they didn't do something that wouldn't allow us to attach them. So it's not like, we can reuse those lights, and the safety on the belt line is really a big deal, I think, in terms of the officers and the cost. So so we think that we made the motion at finance that we get the hybrid with the lights.
And that was approved. Yep. Alder Groupie.
Chief Duman, can you remind us, we sell the cars back for some sort of amount, is that correct? Once their lifetime as squad cars has expired, we do sell them.
So
back.
I don't see Dan Stefani on here anymore. I do know that they get completely stripped out and they go to auction.
Okay.
I presume that money comes back to the general fund, but I don't know exactly what happens.
Pretty sure.
Yes, it does.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Alder Goforth and then Chief McMullen.
Chief, are you happy with the hybrid performance? And does that perform pretty well for you, or how has that experience been for you so far?
So part of the packet materials, there was an email that we received from Madison Fleet Services of some issues that they are having with the hybrids. We have not experienced these specific issues at all. Overall, we haven't had a lot of issues, but some of them are like power type issues, windows, door locks. And then there are others, transfer case transmission that I wouldn't attribute to being just because it's a hybrid vehicle. The only issues that we've had are radio. Every once in a while, our radios, they go into like a maintenance mode. We haven't been able to target what the cause of that is. And so I can't say for sure that's because it's a hybrid versus a non-hybrid vehicle. But generally speaking, we haven't had the issues, but again, we've barely had the one in our fleet for a year. And so, I might expect that we'd have some issues, but maybe further down the road. We just haven't had any yet.
Okay, thank you.
And there, the problems they've been having with their 2020 models, is that right? And
Correct.
do we are both of ours 2020 models?
No, we have the one that we had last year that came into service early this year is our 2020 model. And so that one has barely been in service over a month.
And these new ones are 2020, would be 2021, so maybe they would have taken care of some of the issues. We don't know.
Right.
Anyone else? Alder Moore.
Well, suffice it to say, I think going back to gas would be going backwards. And I think it's, you know, and I would just point out as well that hybrids tend to also be lower in maintenance because you're not you're not running the engine constantly. So, you know, one of the things that is well known in the hybrid world is that hybrids tend to be cost less for maintenance. And because you're not running the engine constantly, they frequently extend the life of the vehicle because, again, you know, the engine is not running constantly. So I would hope that we would, along with the gas savings, recognize those other savings and the savings to the planet by not idling cars constantly, which I understand the police have to do and should do in their business, but you know, for all of those reasons, I certainly would support sticking with a hybrid.
I'm sorry, Chief McMullen, you wanted to say something.
Well, good evening. I just wanted to speak out with some support for my police officer friends, especially when the lighting issue. With the belt line moving towards the flex lane application, all of our lanes are narrowing. And I can tell you from personal experience that the current Monona police vehicles are far less visible than Dane County or Madison police vehicles. So surely from a safety aspect to protect my friends on the police department, I hope you vote for the additional lighting on the new vehicles. So
thank you. Alder Thomas, did you have something?
I just wanted to add that if we don't go for the hybrid option, we may need to consider adding money to pay for extra gas for the other cars. So keep that in mind. I mean, we have to make a budget amendment here to pay for the car, but it's savings over the long run. And even if we don't do it this year, we may still have to add to the gas budget because we budgeted cars for hybrids, and if we don't get the hybrids, we have to buy more gas. So we're going to have to modify the budget for one reason or the other.
Anyone else? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item, consideration of resolution 21-4-2479, amending the capital budget for the purpose of police vehicles, also put forth by the interim police chief. Chief Duman, you want to?
So modifying the budget is obviously what we would need to move for a hybrid vehicle with lighting. Based on the spreadsheet that I put together, again, we would be approximately $10,411.50 over budget. That may be a little under. You know, there may be a few other costs associated with the new equipment, but for the most part, I think we've captured it. So the amendment that I was putting forth was to add $10,500 to our budget for the squad car purchase of 2021 Ford Interceptor SUVs.
And this would be coming from the fund balance. Any questions, anyone? Okay, thank you very much. Let me turn off this phone. Sorry. The landline that rings right here. So, okay, well, I think that's everything we had under new business. So we will move on to reports of committees, commissions, etc. Alder Thomas.
No report.
Alder Coor.
You're on mute.
Sorry, no report.
Alder Goforth.
Just want to say, happy voting, everyone. Hope to see some record turnout tomorrow. I'm sure there's a lot of early voting already taking place. I don't have any reports because my committees have not met since the last time we were here.
Thank you. Alder Wood.
No report. Other MPO meets this Wednesday.
Alder Group E.
Alder Moore, were you planning on talking about the Earth Day event?
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
Oh boy. Do we have another meeting before then? I think. Yes. All right. I'm going to save it, but because I want to make sure that I do it justice. But there will be an e-cycling event at Ahuska Park, I believe 8 to 12 on Saturday the 24th in recognition of Earth Day. And several members of city staff and sustainability committee members will be volunteering on the day to assist everyone with drop-off of difficult to recycle and other items. And again, Alder Moore, please elaborate if you like. I know you've been one of the kingpins, the queen pins in the process, but mark your calendars, save the date for April 24th.
Alder Moore.
Yeah, well, I will just add briefly that if you go to Sustainable Monona on Facebook or on the city's website, and I think we've all done a pretty good job of posting it as well, and it was also listed in the e-newsletter. That event is for any kind of electronics as well as styrofoam. And for the electronics, there are some things that are free and other things that actually cost money. And the list of what things cost, whether it's an appliance or something smaller, is if you click on all the links, you'll get that information. And I would just also say that it is a hands-free, COVID safe event as well. It's going to be a drive-through where you just drive up and pop your trunk, or let the volunteers pop your trunk, and we'll take the stuff out from you, and so you don't have to worry about your safety there either. Very COVID-free event.
Okay. I think there is also a medication drop-off at Medicine Shop that day from 9 until 12. So get rid of a lot of old medicine too. Chief McMullen.
Well, good evening again. Just a quick COVID update. The second shots for the rest of our city employees are happening tomorrow at the fire station. So our city staff should be pretty well covered. I'm currently in the works with SSM Health to set up a couple of mobile vaccination clinics for the city. We should hear more back by the end of the week to help folks who aren't comfortable going out of their house to go to them and provide vaccination services for them. Other than that, we've been busy. I know Chief Dooman can add to that as well. This last weekend we've had 19 calls for service. It was a busy weekend. Couple of structure fires, a couple of MABUS responses as well. Other than that, I want to take the opportunity to publicly thank my volunteers. They pull a lot of hours. They come to training every week. We usually average over 30 volunteers of training. They put in hundreds of hours a month, do a fabulous job for us. I also want to thank the council and the mayor. We just got done with installing cameras on Engine 2, which was a priority last year with the budget. Took a while with Brigade being overseas to get everything in the works to make it happen, but it has finally happened. We do have the camera system installed on Engine 2, and things are going well. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody tonight, not just my volunteers, but all of you folks as well. So I appreciate all of you.
Good. Thank you. Chief Dooman, did you have anything else to add?
Just echoing the increase in calls for service as our weather is getting a little bit nicer. So trying to stay busy, not trying too hard, I guess. We just are staying busy. And we are in the process of hiring an officer as well to replace one of the 3 that we are down. So hopefully we will have somebody to fill one of those positions in the next couple months.
Well, Leah, Administrative Services Director, did you have anything to add?
Just a reminder to everyone that tomorrow is the spring election. For tomorrow's election, we're going back to our normal 2 polling places. So those voters in wards 1 through 5 vote at St. Stephen's Church on Pheasant Hill Road, and those voters in wards 6 through 10 vote at the Monona Community Center. If you're not sure what ward you reside in or where you vote, you can find a list on our website by street. Just look up your street and it'll tell you where you vote, or just give us a call here at City Hall and we are happy to look it up for you. Polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Thank you. City Administrator Gatto.
I have nothing further to report. Ms. Kimmel and the chiefs covered all the items I had.
All right, okay. Well, the only thing I would have is wish everyone luck tomorrow. So it's a big day. We have 1 appointment, Ann Bethauser as election inspector, effective immediately through December 31st. Is there a motion to approve that appointment?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Appointment is approved. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Move to
moved.
adjourn. Oh, I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank